The respect of knowledge, differing philosophies, open-minded commune, and striving towards the common purpose of enlightenment was the core of what made Nalanda one of the greatest examples for the foundation of what some may call a golden age society. We will be taking complex history, philosophy, science, and extracting the essential game-changing knowledge we need. Today we are undertaking a truly epic journey. I think that's the right word for it. We're embarking on an especially salient journey that traverses 1,000 years of intellectual history, traversing all the way back into the heart of ancient India to explore what many scholars consider the world's first true residential university. We are talking about the Nalanda Mahavihara. This is not just an archaeological site in modern India. It is, in many ways, the blueprint for organized residential higher education globally. Its story is an incredible narrative of staggering academic achievement, unparalleled global networking, and ultimately, profound, catastrophic loss. Our mission today is to really unpack the saga, from Chinese pilgrim accounts and Tibetan chronicles all the way to modern archaeological reports, to understand the true depth of Nalanda. How did it achieve such intellectual rigor? Foundations and patronage, the cultural consensus. The Genesis, 427 CE. Nalanda was a Mahavihara. That term translates roughly to a great monastery, or a great center of learning. Located in the ancient kingdom of Magadha, its institutional history operated for nearly a millennium. That's staggering. From its founding around 427 CE, right in the midst of what is often called the Golden Age of India, all the way until its effective abandonment around 1400 CE. A non-sectarian foundation. The first surprise? The founder wasn't necessarily a Buddhist ruler. The founding patron was identified as Kumaragupta I, a powerful ruler of the Gupta Empire, a Hindu dynasty. This immediately challenges the simplistic idea that this was purely a Buddhist institution funded by Buddhists. The fact that a Hindu emperor was the primary engine behind the institutionalization of the world's greatest Buddhist learning center is a crucial insight. This reveals that Nalanda's mission was intellectual and cultural, and it transcended sectarian lines. Seals discovered later confirmed this pattern. They display non-Buddhist deities like Lakshmi, Ganesha, Shiva, and Durga right alongside Buddhist iconography. It wasn't just tolerance, it was active, multi-faith support. Imperial endorsements. After the decline of the Guptas, the torch of patronage was picked up by successive dynasties, most notably by the 7th century emperor Harsha Shladitya. Harsha's support was legendary in its extravagance. It really speaks to how central Nalanda was to imperial prestige. He granted 100 villages specifically for the Mahavihara's maintenance, directing 200 households from each, that's 20,000 people, to supply daily essentials like rice, butter, and milk. This was a vast, state-funded supply chain designed to eliminate any material distractions for students and faculty. This level of state provision is essential context for understanding the reported scale of the operation. The campus and the community, architectural democracy. The residential blueprint. Nalanda is often cited as one of the world's first true residential universities, a kind of ancient state-funded Ivy League campus with dormitories. Before Nalanda, education was often a one-on-one mentorship model. Nalanda institutionalized the process, providing centralized housing, sustenance, and a structured curriculum. The ruins we see today, which are a UNESCO World Heritage Site, only represent a fraction of its true size, but they reveal an architectural marvel. Linear and axial planning. The complex was built on a highly organized grid. A long row of large temples and stupas runs along the eastern side of a central axis. The viharas, monasteries. Opposite them, a long row of viharas, labeled M1, M4, M6, etc., runs along the western side. These were the monastic complexes, essentially dormitories and teaching blocks, where monastics, teachers, and students resided. They typically followed a standard design, an oblong structure with a central courtyard and cells for monks opening onto it. The scale and administration. At its peak, the university accommodated over 10,000 students and 2,000 teachers. It attracted students and scholars from diverse regions including China, Korea, Japan, Tibet, Indonesia, Persia, and Turkey. The massive complex required sophisticated administration, which leads us to one of the most extraordinary aspects of Nalanda's governance. The monk Yijing, who stayed for a decade in the 7th century, documented an incredibly decentralized, consensus-driven management style. Any major matter of discussion or administration required consensus from all resident monks. But here is the profound check on power. The objection of a single monk could call the decision, a single veto. This is a radical, almost impossible level of shared power, even by modern academic standards. It implies a culture that was deeply anti-hierarchical and non-coercive. Scholarly decisions had to be based purely on reason and debate, shastrartha, not on force or administrative coercion. This guaranteed intellectual freedom. The academic pillars, the polytechnic ideal, core curriculum admission was famously rigorous and selective. But once admitted, the students were exposed to a curriculum that defined excellence. Nalanda's academic reputation was built on a comprehensive scope, proving it was far more than a Buddhist monastery. Students were trained as true polymaths. While Buddhist texts formed the foundation, the subjects were wide-ranging. Logic, a practical tool, essential for the constant, high-stakes debate that characterized the pedagogy. Grammar. Mastery of Sanskrit, the language of advanced learning, was foundational. Medicine, Chikitsa Vidya. Specifically, Ayurvedic medicine. This inclusion demonstrated a commitment to worldly practical knowledge alongside spiritual pursuits. Vedic learning, mathematics, alchemy, rhetoric, law, and astronomy. The inclusion of non-Buddhist texts like the Vedas was mandatory. Why? To debate effectively with non-Buddhist schools, students had to know their opponent's arguments better than their own. It was the know thy enemy principle for academic debate. Versatility, or, more accurately, multidisciplinary learning, was a deeply respected and fundamental aspect of scholarship at the Nalanda Mahavihara. The Guru-Shishya tradition. The knowledge transfer mechanism was the Guru-Shishya tradition. This mentorship model was the vital core, ensuring knowledge was not merely written down, but transmitted authentically across generations. The curriculum was often personalized to the individual student, emphasizing deep critical thinking and the constant questioning of established norms. The Guru-Shishya tradition is an ancient South Asian method of learning where a guru, teacher, provides a shishya, student, with holistic guidance, mentorship, and education, often through a long-term, residential relationship. This tradition is characterized by a deep, sacred bond based on trust and mutual respect, which facilitates the transmission of knowledge from one generation to the next, beyond just academics, and into a student's spiritual and personal development. Key aspects include the student's humility and dedication, the guru's comprehensive responsibility, and a focus on skills and wisdom gained through direct experience. The academic standards were notoriously high. Advancement was tied directly to intellectual mastery. The highest material reward was based purely on knowledge acquisition. No formal degrees or convocations were held. Instead, scholars gained immense respect in society through their knowledge and proficiency. Admission was highly rigorous, involving an oral examination with gatekeepers, dwarapalikas, with only about 1 in 5 applicants accepted. Damaged seals. Intellectual achievement was the highest form of social recognition. There were certain rewards for memorizing the 5 texts, which meant fully memorizing 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 of the texts. There were tiers for each text a student was able to recite. It is rumoured that so few students could recite all 5 fully that anyone that did was given an elephant as a reward. The Global Bridge, the Nalanda Trail, the Chronicles of Xuanzang. To verify this scale, we turn to the most invaluable witness, the Chinese pilgrim Xuanzang, Xuanzang. He undertook an arduous multi-year journey to India, specifically to study at Nalanda, arriving around 637 CE. His detailed account describes the establishment as truly marvellous. Richly adorned towers, observatory rooms that tower above the clouds, and an architecture built with permanence and grandeur in mind. Xuanzang's return journey was a testament to the university's knowledge production. He carried back 657 sets of Sanskrit texts and 150 relics, requiring 20 horses just for the transport. Xuanzang's epic journey on foot. Xuanzang, c. 602 to 664 CE, was a Chinese Buddhist monk who undertook a monumental journey to India to obtain authentic Buddhist scriptures and study the doctrine in its birthplace. He departed from Chang'an, modern Xi'an, China, in 629 CE, illegally defying an imperial ban on travel to the west. His pilgrimage spanned 16 years, with his return to China occurring in 645 CE. The journey covered an astonishing distance of roughly 10,000 miles, 16,000 kilometers, traversed largely on foot and horseback. His outward route took him through the dangerous Gobi Desert, across the formidable Tian Shan Mountains, and along the northern and southern branches of the Silk Road through Central Asian kingdoms like Turfan and Samarkand. He then moved through modern-day Afghanistan and Pakistan before reaching the Indian subcontinent. Xuanzang spent over a decade in India, primarily studying at the great Nalanda monastery before commencing his return journey, which followed a similar path back home. His travelogue, Great Tang Records on the Western Regions, is an invaluable historical and geographical record of 7th century Asia. The iconic pilgrim's pack, the distinctive imagery of Xuanzang's travelling gear, often depicted in art, particularly the later fictionalized account, Journey to the West, features a pack with what looks like an umbrella shade and sometimes a lantern or other items hanging from a staff carried over his shoulder. The structure is called a biandan, or carrying pole, and the items suspended from it are not just artistic flourishes, but represent essential elements of a pilgrim's life. The umbrella shade. This prominent feature is actually a wide-brimmed conical hat, or canopy, attached to the carrying pole or staff. Its purpose was practical, to provide shelter from the sun and rain while traveling. It offered personal protection, while keeping the monk's hands free to hold his walking staff, or prayer beads. The lantern. The depiction of a lantern hanging from the pole is likely a symbolic representation of the long, arduous night spent traveling or studying, or a literal tool for navigating at night, especially when he was a fugitive early in his journey. However, the most important items carried on the pole would have been the Buddhist scriptures, sutras, and relics he collected in India, along with his simple possessions, all needing protection and secure transport. This combination of the staff, carrying pole, protective hat, canopy, and hanging items became the archetypal image of the traveling Buddhist monk in East Asian culture. The ocean of jewels, Dharma Ganja. The knowledge generated by these giants needed to be stored. This brings us to the most famous structure next to the main temples, the library complex known as Dharma Ganja, the Ocean of Jewels. Tibetan sources describe Dharma Ganja as being housed in 3 enormous multi-story buildings, including the legendary Ratna Dadi, jewel-adorned, described as 9 stories high. While exact accounts are impossible, Estimates suggest it housed hundreds of thousands, possibly reaching millions of handwritten palm leaf manuscripts. The collection was encyclopedic, spanning philosophy, logic, grammar, astrology, astronomy, and crucial works on Ayurvedic medicine, amongst a vast array of other subjects written by students and monks alike. The destruction of this library is universally cited as one of the greatest intellectual tragedies in human history. The acquired knowledge gathered there was the specific reason the campus was targeted for destruction by a Turkish invasion led by Bakhtiyar Khalji in 1193. His troops burned the university's immense library and killed many monks, students and personnel, leading to its catastrophic decline. The destruction was the final blow to Nalanda, which was already in a state of decline. Legacy to Tibet Nalanda's influence fueled what has been called an intra-Asian renaissance. The influence on Tibet is arguably the most profound and lasting. The entire structure of Tibetan learning is rooted in Nalanda. The 7th century Tibetan scholar Tonmi Sambhota travelled south, immersed himself in Sanskrit and grammar at Nalanda, and is traditionally credited with remodelling the entire Tibetan script based on the principles he learned there, a direct foundational link to an entire civilization's literary identity. Decline and resurrection, the enduring spirit. No great centre of knowledge is invulnerable. Nalanda's decline was a layered process, but the final devastating blow was the Turkic attack in 1193 led by Khalji. Sources describe a systematic destruction and ransacking. The flames from the burning manuscripts in Dharma Ganja, the vast trove of knowledge and epitome of collaboration, reportedly burned continuously for months. It was a targeted attack against the institution of Buddhist learning. The monks who survived the slaughter fled, primarily to Nepal and Tibet, carrying whatever irreplaceable manuscripts they could carry. Persistence and preservation. The biography of the Tibetan monk Dharma Svamin, who visited in 1235 CE, reported finding a few dozen remaining monks, led by a 90-year-old guru, still attempting to preserve the tradition. The survival of those last few monks depended on non-Buddhist support. Dharma Svamin noted they were being housed and supported by a local wealthy Brahmin layperson named Jayadeva. This fact undercuts a simple narrative of religious war. It reveals that the local community still profoundly valued the intellectual capital embodied by Nalanda. Modern revival. The colossal ruins lay forgotten for centuries. The ruins of Nalanda Mahavihara were finally recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 2016. But the most ambitious part of the legacy is the project to recapture that intellectual spirit, the establishment of the new Nalanda University. Its modern revival, officially resurrected by an Act of Parliament in 2010, was intentionally designed as a flagship international endeavour, endorsed by the East Asia Summit, involving nations like China, Japan, and Australia. The goal is profoundly symbolic: to foster global cooperation and learning, symbolically linking modern Asia through a shared intellectual history. Current new Nalanda University grounds. Reflection. Our deep dive into the Nalanda Mahavihara reveals an institution that was unparalleled as an ancient centre of learning. It was defined by a holistic curriculum that integrated rigorous logic, practical medicine, long-form oratory memorizational learning, advanced mathematics, and competing philosophies as its doormat into the steps of higher unity. Its radical academic standards made intellectual mastery the highest form of respectability. The tragedy of Nalanda reminds us how intensely fragile knowledge is in the face of conflict and neglect. But the story continues today with a modern revival, attempting to recapture that spirit of boundless intellectual inquiry and systematic learning without borders. The lessons of Nalanda about intellectual freedom, cross-cultural cooperation, and the pursuit of holistic knowledge are not relics of the past. They are an invaluable model for contemporary education as we navigate a complex, interconnected 21st century.